Next, we have a very nice title that I think summarises a lot of what we're talking today, Privacy at Stake, or Privacy at Stake, with Adrienne Youngman, the CEO of Partisia Blockchain Foundation. So I'll hand over.
I don't know. Yeah, it's on a buy one, get one free deal. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Adrienne. I'm the CEO at Partisia Blockchain. We are doing for data what Bitcoin did for money. What do I mean by that? Well, before Bitcoin and the emergence of everything else that came afterwards, you either had to trust your financial assets to banks and institutions or hide your cash under your mattress. Before Partisia and other privacy-preserving technologies, you have had to give your data to everybody you want to interact with, or, as my friends used to accuse me, go back to the Stone Age and stop interacting online. With Partisia, you're able to self-custody data. So as a user, it effectively never leaves your device or domain in a readable format, and yet you can have rich interactions with it. We do that through a technology called multi-party computation, or MPC. And in effect, what that means is that your data is encrypted. It never leaves your device or domain, and yet people can interact. So how does that compare to something like a ZK proof, for example? So in ZK proofs, you have two entities, a verifier and approver, and you can run a simple query that will give you a binary response, a yes or a no, a true or a false, a 1 or a 0. That has unlocked a huge number of use cases. It can be very effective. If I want to verify that you hold a specific credential, or I want to verify that you're over 18, I can get a nice response from one data set. With multi-party computation, you're able to run a rich query against multiple data sets and get a rich response. So to stay in that identity space with something like multi-party computation, you could interact with my financial data without seeing it, and yet be able to calculate a granular credit score. I could upload my KYC documents, create a kind of a encrypted vault, and products that want to work with me and KYC me could run a specific query against that data and again receive a response. So they're different technologies that answer slightly different use cases, all in the same kind of space. Multi-party computation is on the more complex end of that spectrum, as you can probably imagine. We are abstracting away that complexity so that people can use MPC as a service. And we are able to do that because we have people in our team that have been doing this for a very long time. So one of the project's founders, a gentleman called Bundgaard, wrote the first ever paper on multi-party computation back in 1988. He also co-invented the Merkle-Damgard hash function, which has been seminal to the emergence of cryptography and Bitcoin and apparently the internet. As well as all of those wonderful academics, we have a team that has been applying them to solve commercial problems for the last 16 years for people like the Danish government, Bosch, the Red Cross. And that has given us a lot of knowledge, not only on the theoretical side, but on the practical applications, which has gone into a public blockchain that I should mention is a layer 1. It is very fast, so we have sub-second finality. It's also, and the devs will maybe roll their eyes, theoretically infinitely scalable. So we operate on a true sharding basis, which gives us the ability to scale. And yeah, that is important because we're trying to create technology that enables builders to solve massive real-world problems. So at that intersect of real-world and blockchain, where compliance may be an issue, where you might need to be able to verify certain things in order to interact with regulated products, where you might need to meet things like anti-money laundering legislation or know your customer legislation. That feeds into rich identity solutions. We're finding customers coming to us with emerging data economies where they're trying to move from single purchase into customer lifetime value. And our ability to create kind of product identities and user identities can help them not just kind of answer the provenance question, the anti-counterfeiting, but also move into working with third parties like lending products, insurance products, and also into secondary markets, into trusted second-hand marketplaces. As we go into real-world assets, there's a kind of a gap between what we have in DeFi and Web 2 banking solutions. There's a group calling it now OpenFi, this idea of hitting feature parity with Web 2 banks, but on crypto rails. And there is a need for more sophisticated solutions than the current transparency sledgehammer. And then obviously things like the data breach at 23andMe, which has brought the company into bankruptcy and left DNA records on the dark web, is really highlighting the importance, particularly not just when it comes to financial data, but also when it comes to health data. And as we all merrily fill in our longevity apps and track our sleep and heart rate and cycles and everything else on various wearables, this is something that's going to be increasingly important. And at this point, I would like to hand over to my colleague, Mark.
Thank you. I'm just a product guy. But let's maybe try to dive a bit down to it. So you see the statement here, and these could, be built on any chain. So the idea was really taking the perspective of saying multi-party computation should be something that is available, easy to do, and really a blockchain behind it is also a way of scaling it up to a setting where you can actually do these real-life computations. So a bit of a story-driven approach to this, even saying the reason why there was actually a blockchain, first of all, is saying, well, I'm calculating on 6 million people's health data. I need scalability. I need transparency in the aspect of why we're doing it and how it has been done. So here you can kind of see the MPC as a service. I'm pointing down on the table. You can press the button, this. And what we're really saying here is, for how it's built is, yes, we are layer one. We can do it at a layer one. You look at what we call bring your own coin, actually saying we bridge over something like Ethereum, something like Bitcoin to actually pay for that transaction fee on being able to do these computations. But we are also making it fully available as a layer 2 on top of that, right? Making it easy for anyone looking at saying, well, I actually need to do part of these privacy computations on data, financial systems, identity, something of that sort through a number of chains, right? So here you're not just saying any blockchain, we're potentially even seeing multiple blockchains doing a strict computations inside an MPC environment, providing a single result that is what is called privacy preserved as an output, right? Please go ahead. So just a bit of information about how a blockchain is running already. You have a bit of the supply and also how the staking has been going. And I think what we really see here is also that it's important for many of the things that blockchain potentially could solve in a large aspect is having that transparency layer and privacy layer on top of it, right? So actually having a token, we have a token that runs, but we're also looking at it from perspective of it should be easily available to do these computations by having this bring your own coin. So, story again, always story. But as you can see, back in 2022, and actually even before that, if it's really for real, the private chain already kind of existed back in 2010 as part of our white paper, part of that computation. And that enablement also gave us the capability of understanding how can we best possible make this available with that decentralization we would like to have as part of privacy. So we've been running, well, as you can see, full mainnet live in June 2024. And that also came out of the perspective of part of the customer as a private Partisia institution was saying, well, we are very much interested in doing part of our computation in a private setting. Imagine the case of I want to represent behavior of an environment of people owning a car, but I want to represent the car as a public mean of a digital token, as an NFT, for instance. And I want to add value to that token based on that behavior that is used on driving that specific car, right? And here you get into this public-private offering where you get large institutions actually working with it. On the middle ground, coming into this now, it's saying, well, if we then look into the perspective where we're going, we see cases like Japan now saying, well, we're actually in an environment where I need to prove identity of myself in a setting where I need to consider that I'm maybe, let's call it, in a distrusted environment. My identity needs to be provable that I am me. I have information about me and data about me that I'm presenting in a controlled fashion where I'm in control, as Adrienne was saying, of my specific information, right? And using that into also representing something like a real-world asset, like a station, even a car, something else in between, and combining those two for creating real provability on chain, right? Taking that into that perspective. But I think where this gets really, really interesting and where we see a lot of work going into this is large institutional players that want to have blockchain as part of those natural offerings, right? Whether it's gaming, whether it's TradeFi, OpenFi, whether it's classical banking even, looking into AML structures, you need that bridging going in. And here we're providing that hybrid, that potential measurement of having multiple chains, single chain, identity, and real privacy and transparency on top of that, right? So I think naturally, we end up in the statement, as Adrienne has nicely said up front, that we can do privacy and transparency, like Bitcoin did for money, right? Thank you.